Just going to wait for it here. Setting up meeting. And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media. Taylor Phillips, Ed Smith, and the returning Frank Vajner again. My opening statement brought to you by the Viget app, referral code Stables for Stables Media, capital S, lowercase letter B in the middle. The Tigers rebuild still isn't yet complete, but at least they have AJ Hinch as their manager and one Akil Baddoo, who is still red hot. Ed, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, what is your opening statement?
My opening statement is that besides from the great story that is Akil Baddoo, there are some things I'm noticing about the Tigers starting rotation that has me very optimistic for the future.
Yep. There's still some holes too, especially with their offense. Frank, what is your opening statement?
Well, my opening statement goes as follows. With the Tigers back in action also means the return of high school baseball season for me, and it felt good to be back on the diamond for the first time in 685 days. So it's good to have baseball back, gentlemen.
Yep, of course. Plus, we got the Red Wings and Pistons tank watches and trade deadlines. Plus, we'll talk a little bit of Michigan Wolverines men's basketball and the Lions. So before we get started, we want to remind everyone to download the all-new social sports mobile app Viget. Enter the referral code Stables for Stables Media when you sign up. Download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play and sign up with the referral code Stables, capital S, lowercase letter B in the middle to start with 1,000 free Vig coins. So before we get started with the Tigers, let's start with Juwan Howard, the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, becoming the AP Poll Men's Basketball Coach of the Year. We'll go to Ed and then Frank, as always. Ed, it still had to come, of course.
When you consider, I think this was an award that once you saw all the other momentum and other accolades that Juwan Howard was racking up, this seemed to be an inevitable choice. And frankly, it's the right choice when you consider the fact that this is Juwan Howard's second season. If you want to say first full season since last season got cut off with due to the pandemic, that's fine. But still, the fact that he has taken the job and in such a quick turnaround, well, I wouldn't say a turnaround, but such a quick, short time period, as opposed to how long it took for John Beilein to build the program for his sake, we saw much quicker advancement, development. We saw a great use of other coaches in the system, whether it be Coach Washington or Phil Martelli, amongst others. You also saw a great attention to defense from all players around, whoever was on the court, switches, rotations, pick and roll. You saw development of offensive play. You saw Hunter Dickinson go from unknown freshman to potential NBA lottery pick in one full course season. You saw Isaiah Livers make that next step to where even though he went down and there were stretches and point where the team obviously missed his presence, it was still a next man up mentality. Guys like Sean D. Brown, guys like Eli Brooks, guys like Mike Smith, so on and so forth. Brandon Johns, I can go on, but you saw what happened once the Livers went down all the way up to the loss against UCLA. And frankly, when you consider the fact that they were a couple of bad possessions away from making the Final Four itself in this shorter time period that Juwan Howard has taken the job itself. And also remember the season expectations coming beforehand, where most people did not have Michigan as a viable threat in the Big Ten, let alone making a deep tournament run. So the fact that you won the conference championship outright in the regular season and got to the Elite Eight and came very close to getting to a Final Four in your second season, and it's your alma mater and all the pressure that came forth and whatnot, and knowing that you have a great recruiting class upcoming as well. Clear thumbs up and the right choice whatsoever. My view may be presented with a view of a hint of a bias, but still, I think this was the right choice, all said and done.
Yes, it was the right choice. Of course, Juwan Howard has made some improvements, although Michigan keeps failing to make that Final Four after John Beilein departed. I mean, look, Juwan Howard has made incredible progress in over like 2 years. Wow. Huh. They got knocked out last year. I think in the round of 32 against the Texas Tech Red Raiders, but they made the Elite Eight, and they were this close to making the Final Four. This close. They just got to keep working their way up, not only with coaching their players, but smarter in-game decisions as well. I know the 0.5 seconds, even Eli Brooks, even though he would have got that inbound pass like Franz Wagner did, even he wouldn't have much of a chance anyway, except he was 4 for 5. Franz Wagner 1 for 10. Frank, we'll pass on to you next. Go ahead.
Well, I'm pretty much in the same boat as Ed. Juwan Howard well-deservedly won Coach of the Year. I mean, you look at what he did from year 1 to year 2. First year finishes 9th place in the Big Ten, and there were a lot of people that were thinking, okay, this hire definitely reeks of former player coming back just to bring some hope, but it doesn't look like it's there. Well, off-season comes, he guts the roster, brings in 2 impact transfers. I can't emphasize that enough with Mike Smith and Shawnee Brown, guys who were impact players this year. Hunter Dickinson, freshman, wins Big Ten Freshman of the Year. Here he plays very well. Franz Wagner takes a step forward from his first year to his second year. And even a guy like Isaiah Livers, who showed that he'll be a very good player as well. And even Brandon Johns when Livers was out too. But seeing what Howard did from year 1 to year 2, taking a team that was near the bottom of the Big Ten to winning the conference, that is saying something right there. And I'll even go ahead and say that I know there's people that say Michigan basketball is a blue blood. I'm saying they're not a blue blood, but they are on the way to becoming one, especially with the way they play, they're coached, they're disciplined. And I know they came up a little bit short this year. They're in a tough loss to UCLA. And you know what? We can nitpick it, say that, if they did this or did that. There's going to be losses like that in tournament games where you're not bringing it and on a certain night. But you know what? You just got to pick up next year and build off that and just keep things moving along. And plus, like Ed said, with Michigan's recruiting class coming in, this team's not going anywhere. And even if you look at some way too early top 25 rankings, which, again, are to be taken with a grain of salt, some outlets have them as ranked as high as number 2 in the country going into next year. We'll see where that takes them, but I'll conclude by saying job well done by Juwan Howard his second year. We'll see what becomes of him in years 3, 4, and 5. And so
If I can add on a post note, let's not also forget the time period in which the team had no games, could not do anything for 23 days, 3 weeks, due to the mini outbreak that was going on. So again,
absolutely,
they still came back. They still came back, and they were still kicking butt and taking names.
Yeah, kicking ass and taking names is right. So one of their seniors, Mike Smith, has declared for the NBA draft. Isaiah Livers may declare for the NBA draft as well, but he was Mike Smith is going to forego his extra academic year after his senior academic term, of course. So Mike Smith, the first domino to fall or rise up actually to the NBA draft, of course. Ed, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, the Wolverines already lose one to the NBA draft, but there could be more.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Livers is a definite possibility, especially when you consider the fact that he kissed the floor on senior night when the Wolverines played the Spartans. I think he was expected to use this opportunity in the tournament to bump up his draft stock. Now, I still think he'll still have a place in the draft. I don't know if he'll go in the first round per se, but I do think there's a good chance he'll be one of those 60 players that are selected. It's just unfortunate that this injury took him out before he could really chance to show his worth on the biggest and brightest of stages. But I could see Isaiah Livers being another one. And also maybe potentially Franz Wagner, because I remember reading or seeing hearing buzz about him being a possible lottery pick, giving me memories of Iggy Brazdeikis when he was here. He was a one and done, or he wasn't here for very long either. But I'm hoping that Franz just, excuse me, pardon the background, he does stay at least another year or so, have to polish up on this game, because I thought there were elements of things they need to do that you could still make improvements on. Develop a more consistent jump shot, especially when the chance to get to the lane, get to the rim isn't always there for him. He has to develop a more consistent jump shot. So that way, as you noticed, it could have come in real and handful in that tournament, especially in that Elite Eight against UCLA. So Boddick be another one. I'm hoping Hunter Dickinson does not go, but if he does, it wouldn't surprise me.
Right. Frank, anything to add on?
Well, Mike Smith declaring I don't think is that huge of a surprise. I mean, I don't know if he's going to end up getting drafted or not, but keep in mind that he does have a degree from an Ivy League school, and I've heard that he could probably have some non-basketball related jobs coming his way. Of course, having an Ivy League degree carries that kind of weight. So I think his loss will be somewhat significant. As for Hunter Dickinson, I don't think he ends up leaving after year one, but I think that's more because he's kind of your old school style, back to the basket center, just gets the rebounds, unless he can all of a sudden develop a mid-range game. I think that's something he's going to have to work on before he can make the jump to the NBA. As for Isaiah Livers, I think he's probably going to end up being gone too, because he'll have his degree in hand and he'll at least have that to fall back on. But the whole recovering from the stress fracture takes time, so that could possibly play a weight into whether or not he returns. And I've also heard that there's a possibility that Franz Wagner may test the NBA waters. So we'll see what happens. I know big brother Mo is currently with, I want to say he's with the Chicago Bulls after a trade. Hey, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
You might be right. But
yeah.
Also, I was going to say, good point on Hunter Dickinson. If you want to compare him, I would say if you want to develop this game, I guess maybe towards that might remind some scouts of Nikola Jokic, to where he may not be that multi-dimensional offensive presence with his jump shooting or shot selection, but he could still be a distributor of the ball. He could still be that decoy that will get other players involved. So I think we saw some elements of that whenever there was playing against the zone. Dickinson will play in the middle. They get him the ball out in space, and he will just find an open guy. So that could be an element of his game that he could develop as an X factor, to where that would really bump up his draft stock for next season.
Speaking of Jokic, he was a beast last night for the Denver Nuggets. They beat the Detroit Pistons 132 to 115. They beat the Pistons by 15, I think. But anyway, Jokic was a beast. And speaking of the Pistons, just got word that Dr. Benjamin Palucci, a longtime Pistons team physician who was with the franchise for each of his 3 NBA titles, 1989, 1990, and 2004, died at the age of 84. So sorry to hear that. Pistons lose a physician. It's very sad to hear. He was with the 3-time champion Pistons when they won those titles. They lost 134 to 119 to the Denver Nuggets. That was by 15. They got the Sacramento Kings at Arco Arena tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern time, and then Saturday at the Portland Trailblazers at 10, and at the LA Clippers Sunday night at 10, before they play the Clippers next Wednesday at 8 at Little Caesars Arena. I believe that's it's just on the Bally Sports Detroit. I don't see any national telecast on that one. I know it's 8:00, but I thought it might signify something, but I don't think the Pistons deserve a national TV spotlight anyway, because they're third worst. They are the third worst team in the NBA. They got the third worst record in the NBA, 15-36, as we head to their tank watch. They are in front of the Rockets and Timberwolves, and then You got the Red Wings tank watch, fourth worst in the NHL, 13, 22, and 6 with 32 points. Not very much to talk about in terms of the Wings. So, Ed, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Frank. I mean, the Pistons and Red Wings both have to sell, period. Again.
Sell to an extent, but don't oversell because you still want to keep some valuable pieces that you want to have for the future. In the Red Wings case, definitely I would say do not sell. The Pistons, they've sold as much as they could, but in terms of buying out Blake Griffin, number one, that was a big part that had to have happened for this rebuild to truly take into effect. And also when you consider the fact that they are in good standing with their own draft stock potentially, I could see some potential players that are not besides Cade Cunningham that might be in a good spot to be available for the Pistons to select should they say be in the top 3 or so. And I'll just come out and say it. I think with the way that he turned heads and opened up or exposed himself to a more casual audience, to an audience with more eyes watching than ever, Jalen Suggs raised his draft stock considerably. I know he was already a highly touted prospect. I believe he was the highest rated recruit in Gonzaga school history. He definitely showed that and then some and throughout this tournament run. And I think the fact that his getting into foul trouble in the national championship game really set Gonzaga back more than they could have anticipated. So when you talk about the presence that he has on the floor, that alone speaks to his value, which could, again, entice some teams, whether or not if they're in the top of the lotto or if they feel like trading up or so, that could be a guy worth their time and services to try and get. So even if the Pistons say they're getting the top 3, but don't get number 1 overall, if Cade Cunningham still goes number 1, which he's expected to go, you're still in a position to get a guy like, say, a Jalen Suggs or a Mobley or whatever the case may be.
Good points on the Red Wings and Pistons. Frank, you're up next. Go.
Well, I think it's really going to depend on where the Pistons end up falling in the NBA lottery. Because I think they can't go wrong with selecting either Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, or even a Jalen Suggs, who I've really been impressed with his play at Gonzaga. But of course, I have also heard chatter that Suggs might stay there just so he can play with Chet Holmgren, who is rumored to be leaning toward Gonzaga for his college commitment. That's another story for another time. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, of course, you look at what Troy Weaver has done on via trades. He's gone and gutted this roster from what it was at this time last year. Here and got in some different pieces as well. I think I'm not sure if Jeremy Grant ends up being a piece they keep around, even though he's got 2 more years left on his deal. I know there was a lot of trade chatter regarding him before the deadline. Obviously, no deal came about. So we'll just kind of see what happens, and we'll see what other moves that Troy Weaver makes. And of course, as for the Red Wings, I'll just see what Steve Yzerman does come trade deadline on Monday. Hey, who he ends up selling off. I mean, I've heard rumors that Luke Glendening is probably going to be their best trade asset because he is leading the NHL in terms of face-off percentage. So he could end up fetching a first round. Yes. Now, I think that could possibly end up fetching a first round pick in return, because I remember back in, I believe it was 2012, when the Nashville Predators acquired Paul Gaustad from the Buffalo Sabres, and Gaustad was one of the top face-off men in the NHL, and that got a first round pick to Buffalo from Nashville. So I think Steve could possibly get one in return. Who he gets it from, I really don't know. We'll just kind of wait and see on that. I've also heard Bobby Ryan's name being mentioned on the TSN trade bait board. And also Mark Stahl could be moved as well for a team looking to add some blue line depth. But we'll see. We'll just keep trusting the Yzer plan and see what it yields.
Now, Frank, I have a question. Well, a couple of comments real quick. Glendening makes sense because I believe come playoff time, winning the faceoffs is so underrated, especially if you're either A, deep in your own zone, trying to protect the lead, or B, in either part of the ice, whether you're trying to win a crucial faceoff on a power play or trying to win a faceoff to just help take away time from the clock, milk time off the clock when you know the other team's trying to get an extra skater on, or whatever the case may be. So
Not
those
to mention
faceoffs,
scoring an empty net goal.
yeah, but those faceoffs are extremely important, especially come playoff time. So I think Eisman could note, at the very least, bare minimum, get a second rounder. First round would be ideal, but I think second round would be the bare minimum. And I think Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when Jeff Moss was on the program last week, he did mention Anthony Mantha's name as a possibility. So, Frank, were you able to get any feelers or rumors about whether or not Anthony Mantha's name could be a potential asset?
Frank, did you listen to the episode?
I haven't gotten to listen to it yet because I've been very busy, but yeah, I've heard a little bit of chatter about Mantha being moved. It wouldn't surprise me if he did, because I know there's going to be teams looking to add some scoring or somebody looking to go all in. I mean, Taylor, I did mention before the show that the New York Islanders and New Jersey Devils made a pretty significant trade where the Islanders got Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac back from the Devils in exchange for 2 prospects, a first-round pick, and a fourth-round pick. So I think if Steve Yzerman were to package Glendening and Mantha together, probably could get a similar type return to that. But again, I think we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. I don't expect Steve to make a move either tonight or tomorrow. I would say probably by the weekend at the earliest, but definitely on Monday for sure.
So you're trying to point out that the Palmieri trade mentally would help Yzerman out a little bit on what his plans should be in the near future.
Could be.
I think it could. It kind of helps gauges what type of return he could get in the event he was to send and somebody like Glendening and Mantha elsewhere. But again, there's a lot that can happen between now and then. So we'll just wait and see what happens.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point, Frank. So that's Pistons and Red Wings. We've already gone through Michigan Wolverines basketball. And speaking of the draft, we go over to the NFL draft. The Lions could trade down from their 7th overall pick. As you can see, the Falcons could also trade down from their 4th overall. But this is a news note from earlier over the weekend or something like that. Plus, the Lions have signed cornerbacks Corn Elder and Quinton Dunbar to 1-year deals. Probably just extra pieces in the secondary defense. So no need to grade those. So let's get into some Tigers, shall we? Tigers started off 2-0. They lost the finale. Almost got that sweep when Akil Baddoo hit a solo home run. The first pitch he saw, he just hacked at and didn't even waste any time. Just went opposite field, hit from the left side of the plate, hit it to left field, and it was out of here into the bullpen. The Tigers bullpen and then into the seats. That was just a very special moment for Akil Baddoo. And then the day after that, the Tigers faced the Indians. The Indians were just scorching the Twins. Actually, the Twins. The Tigers were playing the Twins, who were scorching the Tigers. The Twins put 15 runs on the board before Akil Baddoo hit his grand slam. Akil Baddoo, it wasn't even done yet. The walk-off single yesterday, I mean, wow. In the 10th inning, he pinch hit. That's AJ Hinch's smart button pushing right there. I just got to tell you, AJ Hinch pushed the right button that time. In a 3-3 game heading into the bottom of the 10th, there were 2 men on. And then to open the scoring, Akil Baddoo again, this time an RBI triple. When Matt Boyd was starting, yeah, Akil Baddoo, let's start with him, of course, before we get to today's game from earlier. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go over to Frank. We did, of course, you and I did scouting on Akil Baddoo. He can really rack up the hits. He did in spring training and continues to do so in the regular season. Ed, go ahead.
Yes, he had extremely productive spring training, had multiple multiple home runs and RBIs, came in really key and crucial situations and moments. And we're seeing that play out already. You got to remember, he was a Rule 5 draft, so he wasn't an entry-level draft player. He was a Rule 5 draft player from the Twins, believe it or not. So I think there was a rule about that to where you plan for a season, and depending on what he does throughout that season, a potential bidding war or trade war could come about if the team that has him now wants to keep him or give him back to his previous team. And obviously, by the way he's playing, if you're the Tigers, you want to hang on to him as much as you can, especially after the end of this season. But let's talk about the fact also, not just Akil Baddoo doing well. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from the starting rotation, at least most of the starting rotation. I think we can all agree Sunday was an absolute wash. But when you consider the fact that between the performance from Matt Boyd today, the performance that we saw, I believe it was yesterday from Casey Mize, Matt Boyd on opening day, Tariq Skubal, for instance, the names that I'm mentioning, the starting rotation for the most part, except for Sunday. Sunday was absolutely horrible. But in all these other starts, they have had quality starts, in my view, to where the team, after 5 or 6 innings, had a decent shot to at least be in the game, if not win it outright. Now, that is one element I think you can at least have some promise or have some optimism for, that, hey, they can be a building block, core piece for what you can do for the next few years. Because I've heard it said once before in a documentary, and even though Jim Price incessantly says upon it on the radio, he has a point. The art of pitching is the name of the game. And if you have a starting rotation that can give you 5, 6, 7 quality innings, give up no more than 2 or 3 runs, have your team in a position to where you just get a few more runs, get a few more timely hits, you can win the game. That's very important. That's your table setter for a reason. Obviously, other things still need to come into better development, namely the bullpen. I think we've been saying about that for the past 15, if not 20 years plus, about the Tigers need to be doing something about this bullpen. But it reared its ugly head today. It reared its ugly head in the Indians series. Obviously Sunday with the rout against the Twins, it almost cost us the opening day win, because let's not forget, even though Cabrera hit that 2-run home run in the snow, and another one was added on, it was 3-0. 2 runs were given up in the 9th before finally Soto got the save.
Sorry, can I pause you right there? Let's go back to today's game. Boyd gave up all 3 runs.
Yes,
in 7 innings
he did.
Pitched. The bullpen didn't give up any runs today.
I know, but I was going to say those. It's still a 3-run outing by your starting pitcher. I'll take that 9 times out of 10, because it comes down to your offense. It still comes down to your offense having to score and produce. And when you consider the fact also that AJ Hinch, whether it was Hinch or somebody else, made the decision to send Miguel Cabrera on a tag out to beat a throw at the plate.
That was the third base coach, Ramon Santiago. That's not Hinch. That's Santiago.
Ramon.
Santiago is still inferior, even dumber than Tom Brookins.
Well, at least he's not Gene Lamont, but still, like, come on, Gene. I like Ramon. I love you. I loved you when you had your sneaky power when you were playing, but that was not a smart decision. That was not a smart decision as a coach, because you got to remember, this is not Miguel Cabrera from 10 years ago. This is not Miguel Cabrera from 13 years ago when he first came to Detroit. This is not the Miguel Cabrera from 15 years ago when he was on the Marlins. This is an older Cabrera who's heavier in weight. That's naturally happens when you get older, and also
can't run that well.
Exactly, and he's been riddled with injuries, specifically to his legs and his feet and whatnot. So why you would send him, of all people, I don't get that. I just don't.
Especially when that fly ball is so shallow. That's what blew out my brain.
Exactly. If that was
Gene Lamont and Tom Brookins combined.
if that was hit to dead center, deepest part of center field, that's no problem. That's over 400 feet. It would have to take
Then
an
I would
absolute.
definitely send him. Even Cabrera,
Exactly.
yes, that was
Exactly.
if it was way deep to center. Yeah, like
but Santiago just flat out played that wrong, and that was just the not the right decision to make at all.
I mean, he was like almost being reckless. He sent Castro home. He got thrown out, and then, like you mentioned before, Cabrera, the pop fly. Yeah, he got tagged out by 2 miles. He got thrown out by 2 or 3 freaking miles. Man, oh man, that is just stupid baseball right there.
So it's still all at the end. It still comes down to fundamentals and little X factor things, though. So that even though your starting pitcher may give you a quality start, you still need other things to fall in place, namely a timely hit, or your bullpen not imploding, or your third base coach knowing what the hell is the difference between a shallow pop fly and a routine deep fly ball out to right field or left field or whatever.
Yeah, especially when a game hung in the balance. The Tigers had a 2-1 lead going into the 6th. I know the offense is still bad, and Matt Boyd still did good overall. But if you want to win the game, you play to win the game. Frank Badger, like you pointed out once from Herm Edwards, his immortal words.
Absolutely.
You play to win the game. Matt Boyd had a job to do, which was to hold the lead in the 6th inning, especially. He did not do that. He did not pitch well in that 6th inning, and that's what cost the Tigers the game. That's not only the offense sputtering, but Matt Boyd just somehow not pitching well in that 6th inning and thus unable to hold that 2-1 lead.
Well,
that's just embarrassing.
You got also consider,
gentlemen, real quick correction to something said earlier. It was actually Chip Hale who's the third base coach for the Tigers.
Oh, wait,
Ramon Santiago.
I thought I looked it up. And it was I looked it up on the MLB at Bat mobile app. I thought it was Ramon. I thought I read it right, but
I'm reading the game recap from Evan Petzold.
Chip Hale, third base coach.
Yes,
Santiago's the first base coach. I'm sorry, Chip Hale. I don't even know who the hell he is.
He was actually on the Nationals staff when they won the World Series in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But still, that was still a bad decision. Either way you slice it.
Right. Yeah. Either him or just Cabrera deciding to do so. I don't know, but somebody deserves criticism on that.
You got to.
It says Hinch said that Cabrera had the green light to go, which
which means the coaches probably approved. Like, hey, it looks deep enough. Go right ahead.
Yeah,
and Mickey is not going to
deep enough at all.
And also, Miggy is not going to ignore a coach's instruction, especially if he feels it can tie the game. Maybe he was expecting an errant throw or a wild ball, but no, it's just no. That was too shallow of a pop up or a fly ball to even attempt sending him.
Definitely, yeah. Good point on Cabrera not ignoring the coaches, but yeah, that's the main point. Just stupidity all around. I mean, if I have to like criticize all three ends, whether it's AJ Hinch or Chip Hale or Miguel Cabrera himself on deciding to run toward home on a shallow pop fly and tag up and get tagged out by at least 2, maybe 3 miles, get thrown out. I mean, so be it. So at least somebody deserves criticism, like I said before. So the Tigers are 3-3. They got they already got through the Minnesota Twins who won 2 of 3. The Tigers go to Cleveland at Progressive Field to play the Indians at 7-10, 6-10, and 1-10. Their first 3 road games in Cleveland, and then they got the Houston Astros, AJ Hinch's former team, the Astros, 8-10 on Monday and Tuesday, and then 7-10 on Wednesday. We'll keep you posted on that game. And then the Tigers head to Oakland for a 4-game set, Thursday and Friday at 9:40, and then Saturday at 4:07 and Sunday at 4:07 before they head back home Tuesday the 20th to play the Pirates and Royals in a 4-game set. Friday the 23rd through Monday, the 26th, April 26th. It's on a Monday for some reason. There's no holiday on Monday, April 26th. This count on my calendar, and so on and so forth.
Worth noting that in case those that are interested, Casey Mize, his next scheduled starts are slated for Monday the 12th and Saturday the 17th. So the 12th will be against Houston, the 17th will be against Oakland. So for those on the Casey, for those for your Casey Mize watchers, there you go.
Yeah, definitely. We're Casey Mize watchers as well. We're the Michigan Sports Truth podcast, for crying out sideways. So I believe that is all we have covered. So Tigers and Indians, the Viget app does not have that game set up for betting odds yet, but the Tigers have tomorrow off, and then they have the Indians, of course, on Friday at 7:10. The Score mobile app does not have betting odds or anything like that, but that, I guess that's pretty much it. So, gentlemen, excellent job as always. That's another episode in the can. Before we go, we want to remind everyone to download the all-new Social Sports mobile app, Vig It. Enter the referral code STABLES for Stables Media. Available on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Download the Vig It app and sign up with the referral code STABLES for 1,000 free Vig coins. Gentlemen, like I said before, excellent job as always. That concludes another fine episode of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Stables Media. We'll be back next week. For Ed Smith and Frank Vazner, this is Taylor Phillips signing off. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DT2Phillips with DT2Phillips with 2 L's. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter and Instagram at EdSmith313, and follow Frank Vazner on Twitter and Instagram at Frank_Vazner. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Power to the people. Hit them with high, and we rest our case. Stay safe.